She's Mrs. Ice Meister, not Captain Cold. Da-na-da-na.
Wait, what? Why are you singing?
Because we're going to talk about Killer Frost, a.k.a. Caitlin Snow, because your geek history lesson is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Popsicle Inman. Welcome to your Mind University. This is the Geek History Lesson, the podcast where we take one character from comics, pop culture, television shows, or movies, sometimes board games, and tell you everything you need to know about them in a nice, tight, condensed package, just like an ice cube, which I believe our character of today's podcast can make from her hands. Ashley, who are we talking about today?
We're talking about Killer Frost today.
Killer Frost, Caitlin Snow, correct?
Yes.
Now, I could be wrong. I might be wrong. But this character is on The Flash, right? The Flash TV show on the CW?
Well, both versions of this character are on The Flash.
Whoa, I'm going to learn a lot today. All right, let's hop right into the multiverse and get all icy for this Geek History Lesson with the 10-cent origin, where we give you the Cliff Notes version, this section, we give you the Cliff Notes version that you can take to any supervillain Cliff Notes cocktail party and talk all about Killer Frost.
Okay, so Killer Frost is a DC Comics character. Killer Frost was created by Jerry Conway and Al Milgrom. Caitlin Snow was created by Dan Jurgens, Ray McCarthy, Sterling Gates, and Durley?
Wait a second.
Santa Cruz.
I'm a little confused here, Ashley, and I bet our students are as well. You said Killer Frost and Caitlin Snow.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
They're They're different people?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
In fact, Killer Frost has had 3 alter egos. 3 people have worn the mantle of Killer Frost.
It's a popular name. I considered it once.
Yeah. Including Crystal Frost, Louise Lincoln, and most famously, Caitlin Snow.
Louise Lincoln?
Yeah.
All right.
For real, man.
All right.
The first appearance of Killer Frost was in Firestorm number 3 in June of 1978. The first appearance of Louise Lincoln, Killer Frost, was in Firestorm 21 in March of 1984.
Firestorm loves his Killer Frost.
She is a Firestorm character.
Okay.
And the first appearance of Caitlin Snow, Killer Frost, was in Justice League of America number 7.2, a.k.a. Killer Frost number 1, the Villains Month issue from September of 2013. Team affiliations include Star Labs, because it's a team, and the Secret Society of Supervillains.
Not the Iceberg Ice-tastics or something like that?
But you'll be surprised how many ice teams we're going to talk about.
The Fantastic
in other
Freezies?
media. And her abilities, of course, include ice and cold manipulation, and she is currently being played on the CW's The Flash in both incarnations by Danielle Panabaker.
She's very lovely in person.
That's what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move right on to the meet cute part of the podcast.
That's where we stole a term from romantic comedies, and we talk about where we first encountered the character, Killer Frost.
Yes. Jason, where did you first meet Killer Frost?
Well, now I'm a little confused because I don't know which version of Killer Frost this was, but I do remember...
We're going to talk about all of them, so...
I remember encountering a version of Killer Frost. I'm not certain which one it was. I'm going to guess the middle one, but I'm not certain. When they relaunched Firestorm in the 2000s, and they made Firestorm...
That would be Louise Lincoln, the middle one,
They made Jason Rush. Mm-hmm. I remember Killer Frost... I remember reading a comic book, and I can't remember... I know it was a tie-in to like Infinite Crisis or one of those storylines, something like that. And in the storyline, Killer Frost had like a big crush on Jason Rush.
Oh, really?
And she was obsessed with... Or maybe I'm thinking Flamebird. Maybe I'm getting these characters mixed up. I don't know. I know Killer Frost fought Jason Rush in the issue I ran.
That has happened. I read an issue where that happened too. Okay. You're not wrong.
All right, I'm so confused. I'm lost now.
Well, maybe
please teach me more.
Issue.
Where did you first encounter Killer Frost?
So I know that she's been on a bunch of the animated cartoons. We're gonna talk about that. But honest to God, the first time I remember hearing about Killer Frost was on the Flash TV show.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that's because the character just made a really minimal impression on me.
That's probably what it is.
Because she's not a big part of either of those cartoons. And like I said, we will talk about that. So the first time I remember being kind of aware of who this character was, Caitlin Snow or otherwise, was when she became a main part of The Flash.
Well, maybe that's...
So in 2015.
Maybe that's something that the show will take care of. That the show will up her profile, her star value, because like again,
star value.
I got confused about what she was doing in the issue that I read.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's already doing that job.
All right, let's run on into the History 101, where Professor Ashley is going to sit us down, snap our hands with rulers, and tell us to shut up if we don't listen to her lesson of Killer Frost.
Yes. Caveat.
Oh.
Someone on Twitter told me to stop saying caveat. Too bad.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey.
Stop saying caveat.
Too bad.
Caveat. Too bad.
This is a really convoluted character history that I have pieced together from less than 50 issues. So,
Oh, wow.
there's going to be a lot of jumping around in time and space.
Just like Doctor
So
Who.
just exactly. So know that.
Okay.
Second caveat.
Oh, we got two?
We have two caveats.
Oh, good Lord.
So many caveats.
This is the first time we've ever had two caveats.
I think we've had more than two caveats.
Oh, okay.
in
Sorry.
the past.
I was trying to make this episode special.
It's pretty special.
Okay.
It's pretty special. We are going to focus on Caitlin Snow, but like I said, because she's kind of a side player, we are going to talk about the other two Killer Frosts first.
Okay, good.
But there will definitely be a Caitlin Snow focus.
Mm-hmm.
So the first Killer Frost, as I mentioned, is called Crystal Frost because it's the Golden Age. And
That's the
she
Golden
was
Age
a.
soundtrack.
It is exactly.
Yep.
And there's little cherubs flying all
Yep.
around,
Mm-hmm.
just like Robin. So she was a science student at Hudson University. Jason, which other famous DC character has studied at Hudson University?
Oh, good God.
Here's a hint. He's like your favorite Bat character.
Nightcrawler? No, Nightcrawler. Nightwing.
Yeah. In the Golden Age, he attended Hudson U.
I thought it was Gotham State that he went to. No, he did go to Hudson. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm already confused.
Nightcrawler?
Why did I say night? At the last second, I psyched myself out. I was like,
you went
Crawler?
blue. You went blue, so it was the right leaning.
I'm so lost in
That's
this episode
okay.
already.
I mean,
Okay.
me too. So the important thing is that Crystal was a science student. Who was the head of the science department? Martin Stein.
Ah.
Jason, who's Martin Stein?
Victor Garber.
That's right.
Martin
all you
Stein
need to know.
is the professor at Hudson University. He's also half of the Firestorm Matrix with Ronnie Raymond.
So he was working together with Crystal, and they went on an expedition to the Arctic.
Of course.
Like you do. And she confessed her love for her sexy older man teacher guy.
Oh, you get him. Victor Garber is so dreamy.
He's a good-looking man.
Yeah.
And he did not return her feelings.
Like a good professor.
Like a good, responsible human being. She was so hurt that she accidentally locked herself in the thermofrost chamber, and her anatomy was transformed by the low temperature into a ice and cold wielding creature. And she named herself Killer Frost.
See, this is the point I'm going to bring up. When you become a supervillain, like, Frost is a cool enough name by itself. Frost.
Oh, we'll talk about that too.
Is cool enough. Where do you get to the point that you're like, oh no, that's not good enough? Killer Frost. I need to be murderer Axeman.
I can tell you because
okay.
Crystal is defined. Like her crusade is that she leads a murderous crusade through the Firestorm universe. I'm not kidding.
Okay.
Against all men in the name of seeking revenge on Martin Stein for breaking her heart and causing her to transform into Killer Frost.
But she did it. To herself.
Well, I mean, by accident. So she winds up going out and murdering men because she's like, Martin Stein broke my heart.
Because men won't date me, I'm going to kill them all.
Yeah. Have you met teenage girls?
No. Oh, okay. Keep going.
So needless to say, she winds up doing battle with Firestorm a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And eventually...
Does she know that, does she have any inkling that Stein is Firestorm? No idea.
Not
in
the issues that I looked at.
I would imagine most people don't know.
No, I don't know if anyone really knows about Martin
All right,
Stein.
no worries. I was slightly curious.
This is not my Firestorm lesson.
That's okay.
Eventually,
we will do one.
Crystal, you will
Eventually.
do one. Crystal died from absorbing too much energy from Firestorm, so he literally melted her heart and murdered her.
Martin Stein killed her?
Yeah, well, Ronnie Raymond also had a hand in it.
Well, half a hand.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the body.
Not technically, but sure.
So.
That's not quite how it works, but sure.
Well, you know.
All right,
We'll
cool.
go by TV logic.
Right.
So now it's 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome to 1984.
1984.
Killer Frost hasn't been seen for a couple years now.
That's good.
So this character named Dr. Louise Lincoln suddenly shows up in Firestorm. And she's a college student, and she was a colleague and a friend of Crystal Frost.
Mm-hmm.
the previous Killer Frost, who died. And she decides to repeat the accident that happened to her mentor so that she will be turned into Killer Frost. She goes to the Arctic, locks herself in the thermofrost chamber, becomes Killer Frost.
Okay, guys in the Arctic, lock this damn chamber because these teenage girls are just flying down there and getting superpowers, and this is ridiculous.
She's probably like 25, but...
Also, why hasn't the army capitalized on this and gave ice powers to all the soldiers?
Right? Like, have your little northern army?
If we know how it works, let's do it.
So she pursues Firestorm as her nemesis, seeking revenge for Crystal's death at his hands. Fun fact, Louise Lincoln was also briefly a member of the Suicide Squad.
Oh, cool.
Only for a few issues, though.
Yeah.
And then we're skipping ahead to the 1 year later storyline because this is her next big appearance.
Wow, this is quite a big skip.
She doesn't appear a lot.
1 year later is after Infinite Crisis. Infinite Crisis, of course, when Superboy Prime was like, I don't like the universe, and tried to punch reality apart to make it fit his needs. And the year after Infinite Crisis was so big that DC jumped all of its titles ahead 1 year in the characters' lives. And then we got to learn what happened that year. And of course, the thing that we all know happened in that year was 52, one of my favorite comic book series of all time.
Yes. So during that time, during this 52 time, Louise Lincoln briefly dates Mr. Freeze because that's an obvious choice.
Yeah.
And the two of them go on a killing spree across Manhattan to draw out respective superheroes that they don't really like.
Oh, okay, good.
And then an issue called DC Universe number 0 happens.
I know that issue.
Do you want to talk about it?
I mean, it was just a special issue that they put out, kind of leading to Final Crisis. That issue is almost, some people think, is the true first reappearance of Barry Allen when he came back.
Yes, and that's what's most significant about it, I would say. So this issue happens, and we never see Louise Lincoln again. She's killed off panel. And we do hear about her again, but that was her last appearance, was in that issue.
I didn't realize she was killed in that issue. Interesting.
She's not killed in this issue. It's the last time you see her is in this issue.
Oh, okay. But it's mentioned that she's killed.
Yes.
Interesting.
And then the next time we see Killer Frost is in 2013.
Yay!
So we're jumping ahead some more years.
Wow, they did not use her at all.
No, that's what's kind of crazy about this character. And maybe one of the reasons that they chose to bring her onto the TV show, because they could kind of do whatever they wanted.
They could do whatever they want. It doesn't matter.
So in 2013, DC does this thing called Villains Month. And there's an issue called Justice League number 7.2, and it is also known as Killer Frost number 1. If you're going to try and find this issue, put in Justice League number 7.2. Don't put in Killer Frost number 1. You won't get anything.
Will you get weird websites and stuff?
Yeah, you'll get fan art.
Oh, okay, got it.
Because it took me a long time to figure that out when I was doing research for this.
I know, but it took down this weird hole of ice erotica or something like that.
Maybe if you're on the right site. We can only hope.
We can only hope.
Yes. So in this issue, we meet a character named Dr. Caitlin Snow. And Dr. Caitlin Snow opens this issue narrating, telling you about this article that she read in college about how people freeze to death and what happens to your body, and how where this scared most people, this fascinated her.
Okay.
So we already know she's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And you learn at the end of the issue, the first page is a woman buried up to her chest in the snow, and her mouth is open and she's grimacing, and she has brown hair. And
Okay.
she's frozen to death in the Arctic, and it kind of pushes in closer and closer on her face.
All right.
And you learn at the end of the issue that this was Dr. Louise Lincoln, the former Killer Frost. So she was left out in the cold to freeze to death.
By Caitlin?
No, not by Caitlin, but I'll tell you by who in just a minute.
Okay.
So fun fact, Caitlin Snow is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there's lots of Pittsburghs.
Are there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Pittsburgh, Kansas.
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you.
So after college, she goes to Star Labs Outpost number 72, which is located in the Arctic. Stop me if you're seeing a trend.
Oh, man. Don't tell me there's a thermite chamber.
Okay, so I didn't realize that Star Labs had 72 outposts all over the world. I want to know what Star Labs is working on that they need this many places. Are they playing Pandemic and they took it too literally?
It's the only way to be prepared, Ashley.
I guess. They're trying to beat frostbite.
Well done with the pandemic joke. Well done.
Thank you.
Listeners, if you don't know what Pandemic is, quick geek history lesson side note. It's an awesome board game that you can buy, and it's quite addicting.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And you have to build buildings all over the world. So the thing about Star Labs Outpost number 72 is that this is the most underfunded Star Labs outpost in the world.
Of course.
Yes, and Caitlin is hired to take over the job that Louise Lincoln was doing because something happened to her and she went outside and froze to death.
That just seems funny to me. Okay, the one in the Arctic is the one that's underfunded, not the one in Detroit?
No, the one in the Arctic.
Okay, yeah,
That's why they all freezing to death there.
We don't have money for space heaters.
We can't light a fire with scientists.
I only have tank tops. I don't even have a coat.
And why?
I'm underfunded. That's why.
And Caitlin's there with 5 or 6 other scientists, and she is the only one who likes being at Outpost number 72. Like she wanted to go to this one. She specifically requested that her professor send her there. She is happy to be in the Arctic.
She's like a pig in a certain substance.
She's like a pig in frost. So Caitlin. You like that one?
Sure. Let's go with it.
Hashtag pig and frost.
Pig and frost. All right.
So like I said, Caitlin takes over Louise Lincoln's work on this specific machine. What does this machine do? Well, I'm so glad that you asked, Jason.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Jason.
Why are they underfunded?
Because they're building a perpetual motion machine.
Oh.
To break the second law of thermodynamics is that there's no such thing as perpetual motion.
Can you explain the perpetual motion? To anybody?
It's motion that is perpetual.
Thank you.
Can I explain it using different words? Maybe.
Okay.
So she's working on this perpetual motion machine and she succeeds. She makes this machine be in perpetual motion. She's very happy. She throws up her hands and does a little weird dance. Her fellow scientists turn on her and they attack Caitlin. They beat her up. They punch her in the head.
Why?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked, because they're working for Hive, and Hive is the bad guys.
Oh, come on.
Hey, man, I didn't write this.
All right. All right, so the whole outpost is full of Hive agents.
Yes.
Okay, and they were waiting for somebody to make the machine work.
Well, no, they were waiting. They needed to prove to Star Labs that it didn't work, because Caitlin making it run and the implications of that and what they would be able to do with that would ruin all of Hive's investments in various energy industries. So they killed the first lady who made it work, and then they sent this other girl, and they're like, now we're going to have to murder you too.
Okay, got it.
I'm sorry. I'm a scientist.
I'm sorry. I'm a scientist.
Yes. So the fellow scientists reveal to Caitlin Snow that they killed Louise Lincoln by leaving her out in the cold to freeze to death, and that they're going to do this. They're going to have to do the same thing to her, but they're not sure if freezing her to death is the way to go because they don't want to draw suspicion on why they're all winding up dead.
Like 2 people freezing to death.
Yeah, like in a week of each other.
Yeah. So even Matlock could figure that one out.
You think?
Yes. Oh, Matlock.
So instead, they lock Caitlin inside the perpetual motion machine and they turn it on.
Uh-oh.
And Caitlin is like, well, I'm smart, so I'm going to science the beep out of this and save myself.
Nice.
She goes all Matt Damon on it.
She goes Matt Damon. Yeah, nice.
Well, Matt Damon gets saved a lot. So she's like, if I'm like Matt Damon, even though The Martian's not going to come out for 3 years, then everything will be okay.
All right.
So she starts tearing all this stuff down and she tears off these wires and she breaks this stuff. And one of the things that she pulls off is the coolant pipes and vents and coolant shoots everywhere and there's little clouds and it's all snowing.
And of course they're
very,
icy.
very dramatic. So as the perpetual motion machine goes, it forms an ice egg in the middle of the machine. I'm making a motion with my hands that no one can see.
It looks like an egg.
It looks like an egg.
Yep.
So they stop the perpetual motion machine to figure out what's gone on. And they see this giant ice egg. And so, of course, because they're stupid scientists, instead of...
Hive agents.
Stupid Hive agent scientists, instead of like poking it with a stick or something, they all get into the room with the ice egg. And
It'd have to be a long stick to poke it from outside, though.
Yeah, but there's like robot arms and stuff in there, like and
okay.
lasers and stuff.
Okay.
You know, like it's a science place.
I didn't think about the robot arms. I'm sorry.
Come on, there's always robot arms.
There's always robot arms at a Star Labs.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen Star Labs?
Even the underfunded ones.
Especially the underfunded
Where people
ones.
are wearing tank tops. All right, cool.
Yes. So Caitlin bursts out of the ice egg and ice goes everywhere. And she looks like Killer Frost as you are used to seeing her in the comics and in the cartoons. You know, she's got that really sick short hair and she's all blue and really sexy and everything. And she's like, I'm Killer Frost now.
She just announces it?
Basically. And
really?
She murders everybody. But
okay.
She gives this explanation for like why she murders everybody, because she doesn't just shoot them with like ice darts or arrows or whatever.
Icicles.
That would have been a good word.
Yep.
Icicles. She doesn't just shoot them with icicles. She's so cold that her heart and her veins are frozen. So she needs to, quote, melt the ice in her veins. So she feeds off the body heat, the warmth of other human beings. She kisses them, sucks all the warmth out of their bodies, and then they die. So she does that to everyone who tried to kill her.
Okie dokie.
So this ends, and you see her. She's killed everybody, and she's like, "Well, now I have to walk to this. I think it's a Norwegian outpost that's 100 miles away or something." She also has kind of your generic I'm fairly invulnerable to the cold because I'm frozen, and I'm pretty fast because I'm made of ice. Kind of powers.
She sort of like an X-Men Iceman slide kind of thing.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, sure.
But we never see it.
All right,
but
cool.
I'm going to say yes. So she goes.
Or like skis.
Yes.
She can do skis.
Well,
ice skis?
the sexy bombshell statue.
Yeah,
she
that's what I was saying about.
So.
They're icicicle skis.
Yes.
In the bombshells.
So I'm going to say yes.
Cool.
So she goes to this Norwegian camp that's like 100 miles away from her, murders everybody there, steals their helicopter, and leaves and goes back home to Pittsburgh.
It's quite fascinating how these ice powers have amazingly given this college scientist girl the ability to fly a helicopter.
Well, maybe she learned that at science school.
Sure. Sure she did.
So this issue that we're talking about, this was written by Sterling Gates.
Yep.
In 2013. Although if you go and you look at a lot of the information that's available on Killer Frost in any of the databases or in any of the forums, everybody credits Dan Jurgens with creating Caitlin Snow Killer Frost. Although this issue,
really,
this Justice League issue is the first time she's called Caitlin Snow. But at the end, the last couple of pages of this show you a scene from an issue called The Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, number 19, which came out earlier that year, written by Dan Jurgens, that introduces a new nameless Killer Frost. She goes to say, "My name is," and then she's cut off.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of
so can I just make a stab in the dark and correct me if I'm wrong?
Please.
So it sounds like that this is of course is the New 52, the DC Universe reboot that happened a couple years ago after Flashpoint. It sounds like that Dan Jurgens created the New 52 Killer Frost, and Sterling Gates came up with the moniker.
Yes, and then he kind of did this backdoor pilot to tie these two comic stories together.
And he did the origin story.
Yes, that would be how I would like to classify it, and that's, I'm sure, how the writers would like to classify it.
Interesting.
And all is fair in writing.
But at the end of the day, the original guys who created the first Killer Frost are the true creators of Killer Frost.
Yes, they are.
Yes, that's so weird that we have three groups of creators on one character.
But I think it's worth noting that Sterling Gates is the one who called her Caitlin Snow.
He was the Caitlin Snow name,
and Caitlin Snow is now obviously the most famous version of Killer Frost. So in the idea of clarity, that's what happens. So now I'm going to tell you what happens in this Firestorm issue that actually came up before, but canonically comes later.
It is Caitlin Snow, although at the time she wasn't called Caitlin Snow.
Yes. So she's in Pittsburgh and she encounters Firestorm. This is the Firestorm made up of Ronnie Raymond and Jason Rush. Mm-hmm. And she has a couple other thugs with her, and they basically fighty. It's not a great issue. Nothing much happens in it. The thing that is kind of important about it is that you see her, and this might be what you were talking about earlier in the Meet Cute. You see her make advances on Firestorm, and you see her try to kiss him. Although she doesn't reference one of the specific men who make up Firestorm, but she's being very sexy to Firestorm.
Maybe I don't know.
And they're fighting on a dock.
I just know for a fact, I read an issue somewhere where Killer Frost has the hots for Jason.
I don't know. Maybe that's derivative of this issue.
And she knows that it's Jason's inside the Firestorm Matrix.
Well, not the issue that I read. So.
I don't know.
But it's probably during this. It's probably during the same run, because Fury of Firestorm went, I think, 24 issues or 25 issues.
I'm not certain.
I was just looking at it the other day, but of course I don't remember anymore. Mm-hmm. And so she obviously, like all the other Killer Frost, she becomes a rival, a nemesis of Firestorm, carrying on that classic fire and ice rivalry in superhero comics characters. So if anyone's wondering why Caitlin and Ronnie were paired up in The Flash, I hope that all made it really clear for you. While fighting against Firestorm, Caitlin discovers that her frost powers can temporarily heal her injuries. So if she and none of the other Killer Frosts have done this. So if she's fighting,
she's talking about icing a wound, but
don't put salt in it though, because salt melts ice. Get it?
Yeah.
Salt in the wound.
Yeah, that's kind of stretch.
So if she's fighting, she can repair, she can kind of put like an ice Band-Aid to help her out.
Okay.
But it won't totally re-heal, but she can put a little shield on it.
Okay.
Which is kind of a cool thing that I'm hoping we get to see something like that in the Flash TV show.
Sure.
She is also the first Killer Frost, and they've all been scientists, if you've noted. They've all been women of STEM, to discover what the Firestorm Matrix is.
Interesting.
Can you explain what the Firestorm Matrix is?
In very basic terms.
Just in as simple as possible.
Basically, the Firestorm Matrix is this device that was created through an accident, an experiment, Professor Martin Stein, and it causes a nuclear reaction that causes the bodies and essences of Martin Stein and Ronnie Raymond, his student, to combine, and they become this Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. Now, in the show, Firestorm basically can only shoot fire and do stuff like that and absorb things. But actually, in the comic books, when he was first introduced, he was considered to be the most powerful superhero in the DC universe.
Which, by the way, every Firestorm issue I've ever read, someone has gone out of their way to say he's probably the most powerful character in the DC universe.
He is. He literally is, because he has to know the chemical composition of stuff.
Yes.
And if he thinks it, he can transmute it. He can create it, which means he can create gold.
Yep, he can transmute water into air.
And he can create kryptonite.
That's right.
Out of thin air. He's done it on only a couple of occasions, but it's very difficult because you have to know that combination. Firestorm also is, besides Martin Stein died at one point, and it became Ronnie Raymond and Jason Rush. Jason Rush was the new. And then also it was Jason Rush and his girlfriend at one point who were they made up the Firestorm Matrix.
Yeah, and it was weird.
I actually kind of liked it.
I think it was
okay
weird.
with it. I've never been a big fan of Ronnie Raymond. Here's the other thing about Firestorm, and we're going on down this weird sidebar. Caveat, sidebar. Yeah. Firestorm, I think, is a character with immense potential. And the idea that he can transmute, and his look has through every incarnation, he's at an amazing costume.
So you're saying you would want to write Firestorm?
No. Let me finish. My statement about Firestorm is that I think Firestorm is a character with immense potential. Sure, I'll write Firestorm. But I've never read a good Firestorm story.
I would tend to agree, and I read quite a few Firestorm issues for this. If anyone has some suggestions of great ones, I'd love to hear them.
Tell us on Twitter.
Yeah,
please let us know on Twitter, because I've read a lot of Firestorm too, and I've always, to me, the best Firestorm so far, I think, has been the Jason Rush run. That's the closest, but still, it never quite got there.
Yeah.
For me, and I want to read a great Firestorm. So to me, honest with you, I kind of think it's going to be. I kind of think Legends of Tomorrow might create the first great Firestorm story.
I'd be down for that.
And Martin Stein as Victor Garber and Jax Jefferson. I can't remember the actor's name. I'm pretty certain that kid's British though.
He is, yes.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, but he's great. But that's sad. Firestorm is a character that I want to know so much about, but every time I read a Firestorm comic, I'm underwhelmed.
Okay.
So.
Well, we have Legends. We have hope.
Yeah, there you go.
But that all circles back around to saying that because Caitlin Snow is the first one to discover what the Firestorm Matrix is.
She figures it out.
A lot of people think that, a lot of fans theorize that this makes her the smartest, the most scienciest of the potential Killer Frosts. And she kind of makes it her crusade that, I mean, yeah, she hates Firestorm and yeah, she hates men, like all the Killer Frosts, but she...
Do they ever explain what her hatred of Firestorm is? Or she just generally hates him because he's a hero?
Caitlin Snow very much inherits this because that's what the other Killer Frost did, whereas like the first Killer Frost, loved Martin Stein.
Yeah, they had a personal connection.
Yeah.
I kind of dig it because she is a scientist, right? And for her to be more scientific about her supervillainy, if that's a possible way to do it, is fascinating.
Yeah, it becomes it kind of becomes her crusade that she's going to figure out how to make the Firestorm Matrix and how to harness it for herself.
Oh,
she wants
to make like the Ice Storm Matrix.
Yes.
Oh.
The Ice something Matrix.
Yep.
Ice Typhoon Matrix.
Ice Blizzard Matrix.
Yes, Ice Blizzard, that's right. So Caitlin Snow is also featured on the cover of Flash number 43, which was during the DC Comics Bombshell series.
Ooh.
Even though she doesn't feature in the actual narrative of the issue, because I read it and I was disappointed that she wasn't in it. And she has a very, very kick-ass, very pretty statue based on that same cover that you can rush out to Buying Frenzy and get right now.
Yes, and I had the amazing privilege of unveiling that statue for the first time in public to Danielle Panabaker.
That's awesome.
And she was shocked. She was literally flabbergasted about that statue.
I think any of us would be.
She was very nice. We let her take it home. Aww. She got to walk away with it. Yeah.
Well, she should be nice then. Yeah. So other than that, that's basically all that Caitlin Snow has done in the DC universe.
In comics.
Yeah. She's been in 2 comics.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
She does, however, appear in the Flash Season 0 tie-in comics, including an issue that was written by none other than her creator, Sterling Gates.
Nice.
And in that incarnation, Caitlin is strictly the good girl scientist that you know from the and love from the TV show. Aww. She pals around with Cisco doing their sciencey stuff, including riding around in a van like Scooby-Doo. And you may think that riding around in a van like Scooby-Doo sounds like fun.
Yeah, Shaggy.
But it can get boring real quick. And it's what we'll be forced to do if none of our listeners go to patreon.com/Jawiin.
Spelled Jawiin, Scoob.
Thank you, Shaggy. That is the website where you can support Geek History Lesson and all of the recap shows that we are doing, and get yourself some sweet perks. Like for $3 a month, you can get Geek History Lesson a day early.
What?
Or for $5, you can get the Patreon-exclusive Geek History Lesson Extra podcast. So help out our
Wait, 2 podcasts for the price of 1?
2 podcasts for the price of 1.
That's awesome. And you help support the show.
That's right. More importantly, you're helping support our server and storage costs. So head on over to patreon.com/Jawiin. What's that spelling one more time?
Jawiin.
And we appreciate each and every one of you for your support. And that's what got us this far. That's what got us to
101 episodes. I want to say issues. That's the same thing.
So enough about bands. Let's talk more about Killer Frost on television.
Okay.
Because I think we've impressed upon you that she's had a pretty limited comics experience, but she has had a long and fruitful television career.
I think it's maybe because she's so visual.
She is very visual.
Like, she's all icy. In every incarnation, she's white. She sometimes has icicle hair.
I also think because she feels like, to me, she feels like a character who's derivative of pre-existing characters, even though it's not a Hulk, She-Hulk thing, but like, we have Mr. Freeze, we have Captain Cold.
Yes.
She's just a girl version of that.
She's basically,
to be rude,
she's girl Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Basically. She really is.
But.
Because they're both scientists.
Yes. Oh.
Both have tragic accidents involving the Arctic temperatures.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on.
They both hate good guys.
Yeah.
So her first appearance in DC TV history. Jason, what do you think was the first time Killer Frost appeared on screen?
Well, you're asking me this. My gut wanted to say Smallville. But now that you're asking me this, that I kind of want to go back further. Was it the Superboy TV show?
Her first appearance was actually in the Super Friends.
Oh, cool.
Which I like. I went and looked for it. It was so amazing.
Even earlier.
Yeah. It's a very minimal part, but she's a member of the ice and snow themed villains group called the Ice Pack.
Oh, guys. No, here. I got a guy. His name's Murray. He's way better at branding than
Cisco.
you. No. I got a guy. His name is Murray. He's amazing at branding. Please give him a call. Oh my God, the Ice Pack.
Yeah, I highly recommend going to check out either pictures or the episode itself.
Can you find it on YouTube?
You can find it on YouTube.
Oh, Lord.
It's pretty bad.
Okay.
In that way that the Super Friends is very much a product of its time. It's awesomely bad.
Yeah, it's bad good.
It is bad good. The original Killer Frost, Crystal Frost, appears alongside Captain Cold, Mr. Freeze, Minister Blizzard, Cryonic Man, Icicle, Polar Lord, and the Snowman in Justice League Adventures number 12, subtitled Cold War, which is the tie-in comic to the Justice League animated TV series.
I know. I know about that comic.
It's actually a really fun comic. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you cannot find it on Comixology or Amazon. So if you want to check it out, you're going to have to go find a hard copy secondhand somewhere. Because I wanted to share it with everyone. Killer Frost is Heatwave's girlfriend in the Justice League Unlimited tie-in comic as well as in the animated TV show. And she's voiced by Jennifer Hale. Jennifer Hale is a very well-known voice actor in both the DC and the Marvel animated universe. She has also voiced Killer Frost in Batman Assault on Arkham animated movie, Injustice Gods Among Us video games, Batman the Brave and the Bold TV show, Superman Batman, Public Enemies animated movie.
I just going to be the Public Enemies, yeah.
Yep. And Jennifer Hale, by most fans, is considered to be the ultimate Killer Frost performer because she's brought her to life in so many different places before Danielle Panabaker's performance in The Flash. Which I think
How
is kind
cool
of
would it be if when Killer Frost shows up on The Flash, if Jennifer Hale does the voice and they make Caitlin Snow Danielle mouth the words?
No, they should, because she's she's not in her 20s anymore. She should be her mom.
Oh,
because she's of that age right now.
That's a fun Easter egg for The Flash. Well done.
It would be, yeah.
Andrew Kreisberg.
She's a lovely looking lady too, so I think
Jennifer Hale?
she's beautiful, yeah.
Oh, would you buy her as Danielle Panabaker's mom?
I would, yeah. Her hair's a little darker.
Guys,
she's CW pretty.
Guys, make this happen. Done.
Andrew Kreisberg, come on, call me.
Yeah, Jennifer Hale is her mom. Done.
When she appears in Young Justice, though, she's voiced by Sarah Shahi. Shahi.
Oh, I forgot she was on Young Justice.
It's a very small part.
Yeah.
And this actress is famously known for playing the reoccurring character of Jenny on Alias, another nerd show.
Okay.
And then Frost, leaving the killer moniker at home, is set to appear in the DC Superheroes Girl multimedia platforms.
Oh, nice. Yeah, with the novels and the graphic novels and the cartoon.
Yes, and I just got the chance to read an advanced reader copy of the first DC Superhero Girls book, and Frost is a very prominent character there.
Do you like her in it? Is she cool?
She is.
No pun intended.
She is a mean girl.
Okay, she's a bad girl.
In that, she's a bad. She's not the bad girl, but she is a bad girl. And I think that if you're marketing this to like 6-year-olds, because I say you could probably give it to a girl who's 6 or 8, depending on their reading level. I see why you want to leave the killer off of your Killer Frost.
Yeah. It's the same thing as like Deathstroke for Teen Titans cartoon when they didn't want to call him Deathstroke.
So they called him Slade.
They just called him Slade.
Yeah. I get it. For marketing, I totally get it.
Kid show. Get it.
And that's my whole lesson on Killer Frost.
Do we want to talk about her in the TV show at all?
Well, I was going to leave that for our discussion.
Okay, sure.
Because I know, I think that's the place for it.
Okay, that's fine.
So I wanted to roll into recommended reading.
Please don't kill me with your icy powers.
That's what icicles sound like.
Yep. Our recommended reading, we have a full list of all the recommended reading that we suggest on this podcast. You can find it on geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, all lowercase, or you can just go to geekhistorylesson.com. There's a big old button that says recommended reading. All of the books that Ashley's going to suggest will be there. You can click on them. You'll go to Amazon. You can buy them right away so you can read all the Killer Frost goodness, and a little small percentage of that comes back to the show. And
helps us not freeze to death.
Yes.
So the first thing that I'm going to recommend is Justice League of America number 7.2. That is Caitlin Snow's first appearance. That's the Villains Month tie-in. It's got a really cool cover. It's a really fun issue.
A lot of the villains issues I remember being quite good.
Yes, they're fun. They're fun. They celebrate the evil. What's not to love?
Yeah.
And then the second thing I'm going to recommend is The Flash Season 0 number 12, which is the full 22 pages that Sterling Gates wrote. That is the tie-in comic to the Flash TV show. And then the last thing I'm going to recommend is Flash Season 1, because it's the most Killer Frost you get, the most bang for your buck is Danielle Panabaker in that show.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my recommended reading.
Yay.
So why don't we roll right on to the discussion, where I know we are having a very special guest join us to talk about the Killer Frost.
Yes, a very special guest, a big fan of the Flash TV show. That is because he is the host producer of the Flash podcast. He's also a writer over at Heroic Hollywood, and he runs the Marvel Report. I am talking about Andy B.
Woo!
Hey, Andy, thanks for joining us for our Killer Frost talk.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, I believe Ashley has some challenging questions and maybe some other stuff for you. Let's hear it, Ashley.
All right, so as we know, on The Flash and in that universe, we have two ice-based villains now. We have your Killer Frost, who we're talking about today, and we have your Captain Cold. So I thought we would play a quick trivia game. Who said this? Killer Frost or Captain Cold?
Oh.
And you guys can work as a team if you like.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll be generous about that. So my first question is, who said this? The Joker has a dirty bomb? That gives me chills. Killer Frost or Captain Cold?
Andy, who do you think?
It sounds like that Captain Cold would say, because that sounds so sassy, and Killer Frost seems more like more. She seems to have more shade. Captain Cold seems to be more sassy. So I say Captain Cold.
I actually say Killer Frost. I don't think Captain Cold would be afraid of a Joker bomb.
Final answers, gentlemen?
That's yeah.
All right. It was, in fact, Killer Frost.
Yay!
So Jason has 1 point.
1 point for me.
All right. Second question.
Sorry I turned this into a competition already.
Who said you ordered some ice? That's how villains talk.
Oh God, they both could have said that.
I'm going Captain Cold. I'm going Captain Cold in that one.
Oh God, I'll go Captain Cold too.
You are both correct, Captain Cold. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I could hear Wentworth Miller say it so loud in my head. I feel like he came in one time and said, "Ooh, order some ice," not Mr. Freestyle. So
yeah, it sounded like a very Batman and Robin line.
Yeah, right.
So who said hate is cold and hell is cold? Killer Frost or Captain Cold?
Captain Cold. I'm sorry, Andy. Like that. That sounds like a Jeff Johns Captain Cold line to me.
Yeah, it does. I'm gonna say Cold too.
Ding, ding, ding. You are both correct. All right, number 4. Get out of my way. Oh, fine. I'll ice you both.
What do you
Killer
think?
Frost.
Yeah, I think it's Killer Frost too.
Correct. It is Killer
All
Frost.
right.
You guys are killing it.
Yeah.
And final question.
No pun intended.
Pun completely intended. I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll freeze all your stuff.
Cold.
I don't know about that one. I'll go with Andy. I'll say Captain Cold.
Correct. It is Captain
Yay.
Cold. So,
That seems like something he would say when he's really, really angry.
Yeah. Wow.
You guys did really good.
Well, it was weird because I think you could slightly tell the difference between the two.
You think so? I think Captain Cold is a little bit funnier and your Killer Frost is a little more aggressive, interestingly enough, because you would think that given their genders it would be typically the other way around. So now that was over, I think we obviously have to open the discussion up to Killer Frost in Earth 2, the first visit to Earth 2, and what do we think about her?
Yeah, it was really cool. Andy, what do you think? You, of course, run the Flash podcast, so what was it like for you seeing Killer Frost finally on screen?
Perfection. That whole episode was, it's one of the finest episodes of the whole show, but seeing how they dealt with Killer Frost and, with the costume and her, how Daniel played her, it was, it had all those perfect balances of everything. She wasn't too cheeky. She wasn't too too intimidating. So there was a balance of everything. And we've seen different Killer Frost in the animated movies and animated TV shows and so on. But to actually see her in live action for the first time was I think they nailed it pretty well. And no offense to Earth 1 Caitlin, but if I could see more of Earth 2 Caitlin on a more regular basis, I would not mind that at all. But that's just my opinion.
I totally agree. I think that as Killer Frost, she has a lot more interesting things to play besides, I'm just kind of the sad science girl, which seems to be her thing.
I have a dead fiance.
Oh, but now he's really dead.
On 2 worlds.
That's true, on both worlds. No more Ronnie Raymond. I thought it gave her just a really neat edge, and I think that while the update to the design is super, super CW, I actually really liked it. Because sometimes I'm not always on the up and up with the costume changes.
I'll tell you this. The thing that impressed me the most about seeing Killer Frost for the first time in live action was just how good the ice powers looked. Because for me, ice can look really cheesy on a production. Just go to Batman and Robin and look at Mr. Freeze, and all the ice looks like plastic and rubber. And I'm pretty certain it was CGI, but when she iced up her hands and she launched those icicles at Barry and the icicles stuck through the table, I actually thought it looked really good.
I thought it was cool, too, when she kissed the guy and he froze, because that's a direct pull from the comic.
And then he shattered,
yeah. I thought that was really, that's really kind of brutal.
Can I ask a crazy question to both of you?
I guess.
Do we ever think we will see Earth 1 Caitlin become Killer Frost? Andy, I'm curious. What do you think, man?
I'm always going to stick to the theory that one of my co-hosts on the Flash Project gave, which was that maybe Killer Frost from Earth 2 will kill Earth 1 Caitlin and somehow maybe take her place. I know there's the whole, she has ice skin and, white hair or so. But
holographics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Look, we have a guy running faster than the speed of light, and we have a talking gorilla. I'm pretty sure we can find a way to make an ice villain look like a normal human being. I think that's what's going to happen, but, obviously it would be fun to see our Caitlin become Killer Frost too, because she has gone through so much trauma and tragic on her Earth. So, but I think it's totally possible. Like, it would be kind of fun if they actually pulled it from the Sterling Gates comic with, that she actually goes on to pick up on that mission that Louise Lincoln, one of the other Killer Frost, was starting on, but then she mysteriously died during. So
the perpetual motion machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you would have asked me last season, at the end when it seemed like Caitlin was going to side with Wells and Barry and Cisco were going to kind of go off and do their own thing, I would have said that I think 100% that she is going to be Killer Frost, but I kind of think they're going to do a Laurel thing with her. Like, when Arrow started, we all knew Laurel was going to be Black Canary. We all knew her and Oliver were going to wind up together at the end because they telegraphed it from 100,000 miles away. And then it wound up that we had a Black Canary who was really great. We got rid of her to put her on Legends, and now Laurel's Black Canary, and then eventually he'll break up with Felicity, and they'll wind up together in the final season. And now I think that
if it happens,
Such
I will cry
confidence.
tears of joy because I would love to see it happen.
I mean, given the way like Black Canary and Green Arrow are always together, and the way that the CW sets up their love interest, I think that's going to happen. And I think that now we're setting up Caitlin. She's such a vital part of the team. And I think that Danielle Panabaker's no fool. She knows she's got a sweet gig. Mm-hmm. And I think that, if they killed her off and brought Killer Frost into that world, it would be really interesting. But I think the CW is much more interested in keeping her as the pretty nice girl. Yeah. I mean, just speaking from like a production and marketing standpoint and where that network comes from. But I would still love to see either Earth 2 Killer Frost come over or her make that transition. I just think Killer Frost is a more interesting character. I mean, like, no offense and no knocks. I just think she's so much more interesting to watch. It would be like watching Captain Cold do normal human stuff is all well and good, but watching him be the sarcastic villain is a lot more fun, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love Caitlin. I totally do. But it's like, at some point you're gonna have to do something, like, because we can't. There's no way we're gonna see an Earth 1 Caitlin and an Earth 2 Killer Frost at a regular basis at the same time. One of them is gonna have to go. And like you said, Caitlin is great, but Killer Frost is a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it's because what they've done with the Killer Frost Caitlin Snow character, the Earth 1 Caitlin Snow on the Flash TV show, is she just kind of just sits behind a desk now and gives them information, and that's all she does.
Yeah, they're trying to make her like a Felicity kind of analog, but for me, she doesn't work as well. But I'm hoping that, and this is what I wanted to ask you guys, Arrow really likes to create these little mini teams, or like the Flareoverse within their universe. Like, you have Team Flash, you have Caitlin and Cisco together, you have Killer Cold and Captain Cold and Heatwave, and then sometimes
ship.
That's Captain Cold's son, Killer Cold.
Yeah, that's their child from an alternate. That's Earth 3. That's where Supergirl is.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask, do you ever think that we're going to get those two ice villains teamed up? Because they have teamed up in some of the comics and they have teamed up in some of the cartoons. Do we think that there's going to be any reason why we wind up with Captain Cold and Killer Frost having to work together, or Caitlin and maybe Mayor Snart?
I hope so. I think that would be a lot of fun. At this point, it just depends on when Wentworth Miller will be able to come back to the Flash, because he's doing Legends and he's going to do the sequel series to Prison Break.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting that's happening.
Yeah. So, look, I'm sure he can do guest spots, but I feel like if they're going to do a team up like that, I feel that should be something that goes on for a few episodes. So it all depends on Wentworth's schedule. But I know he's not ready to give up Captain Cold anytime soon. And But I would love for that to happen. That I actually always thought in the beginning. Remember when they said in the casting break that that she had a mysterious fiance that disappeared, that supposedly died. I always thought that was gonna be Captain Cole, and that Caitlin would somehow have him be connected to how he got his eyes gone and stuff like that, and then herself become Killer Frost later on. But then Robbie Amell was cast, and Victor Garber was cast, and I was like, I'm always wrong with theories. I went too far with that one.
I almost would have rather seen that than have to see Robbie Amell personally.
I actually think that if Captain Cold and Killer Frost ever team up, we're going to see it on Legends.
You think?
Yeah, I think if
you don't think it would be like a big finale event where Earth 1 and Earth 2 collide?
I mean, that definitely could be it because I know one of Andy's co-hosts on the Flash podcast, she likes to bring up that she thinks Flashpoint is going to be like one of the season finales, and I kind of agree because I thought they were going in season 1.
Yeah, we had that kind of in microcosm.
Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna see like a crisis event. I honestly don't know where they're going with the season finale, to be honest with you.
Isn't that exciting though? I feel like this season of Flash is a lot more unpredictable than it was last season.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like that's more of a Legends thing than like I kind of feel like they'll go to like Central City in the future, like they're going to start. Like they've already announced that they're going to Star City in the future, and then Captain Cold will come across a future
Killer Frost.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I hope if they ever do Flashpoint Crisis, I think they are gonna do that because I think there's been too many teasers for that. I think it's definitely gonna be done on the Flash, and also I would just be pissed off if it didn't happen on Flash because then I don't get to talk about it on the Flash podcast, and I'm like, well, I guess those other guys will get to do it then, and I'm like, and I'm selfish, so yeah. But I think it's Flashpoint will happen first, and I think then Crisis will happen like towards like one of the final seasons of the show.
Now, Andy, final question for you. Mm-hmm. In terms of the Flash villains, and you can judge this by the comic books or the TV show, either one you want to do, where would you rank Killer Frost in terms of the Flash's villains?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is she towards the top of the list or the bottom of the list, do you think? And I know in the TV show we've only seen her in one episode, but, just theorize.
Yeah, in comics-wise, I can't say much because Killer Frost isn't really much of a Flash villain. From at least from the comics I've read, maybe there is something that I missed, but
no, she's definitely she's like a Firestorm villain, which is really weird.
Yeah, well, it does make sense though if you think about it. Like that makes more sense for me.
Some could say it's a song of fire and ice.
Ding ding ding. I would say if we're gonna we've only seen her in one episode, but if I could say this, if I would just rank her based as the villain of the week type of thing, she's like the best one, like at the definitely in the top 3 at least, but as a Flash villain as a whole on the show, like I would say she's definitely in the top 5. I think Captain Cold and Reverse Flash is always going to be they're always going to be tied for me, number 1 and 2, and then Gorilla Grodd, and then Killer Frost, and also it kind of says a lot of we need more female villains in general. So I'm just saying, but she's definitely up there. Like in terms of the TV show, she's definitely up there, like at least in the top 5 for me as a villain. Whether it is villain of the week or then eventually soon a recurring villain, but yeah.
All right. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Please let our listeners know where all the places they can find you and find all your Flash thoughts.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And they can find the Flash podcast at theflashpodcast.com, where we get all the latest news about the Flash and the podcast and so on. You can find all the social media links there, and we're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at AndyBakht, BHBAKHT, where you can find all of my other projects. I work for Heroic Hollywood and TV Overmind, and I also run the Marvel website called The Marvel Report, which is an awesome fan that I run with some of my hosts of the Flash podcast, and I'm also kind of like a co-admin of the DC Podcast Network over at DCPodcast.com, where there's a podcast for all the DC shows that are out there except for Vertigo, because that's a good debate for someday. But yeah, you can find there's a podcast for all the DC shows and also the DC movies. So yeah, DCPodcast.com, and you will find social media links to that as well.
All right, thanks, Andy, and I hope to see you soon throughout the multiverse.
Absolutely.
And I don't know about you, but I think that was a fascinating discussion about Killer Frost and all things The Flash. Guys, go over and follow Andy on Twitter. Go follow the Flash podcast. Listen to the Flash podcast. It is a great podcast, and sometimes Ashley and I show up on the Flash podcast and talk Flash things. But it's a really fun podcast. If you like the Flash, definitely go check that out.
For sure.
At the Flash Podcast on Twitter, if you want to know that. So there you go.
All right. How about we move into the teaching tweet as we close out this lesson?
Yeah, the teaching tweet, which is the last section of our podcast where we reveal everything that we learned about the lesson in less than 140 characters. Ashley, you're the professor, so you need to give us the teaching tweet.
Killer Frost. Not the evil version of that singing Disney ice princess, but close enough, really. That was my teaching tweet on Killer Frost.
All right, then. All right. Well, is that all for Killer Frost?
That is all for Killer. That is so much Killer. What more do you want?
I don't know. I can't see an end to this blizzard, and I just want to know when it's going to end.
It's going to end right now.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to Geek History Lesson. As always, don't forget about the Geek History Lesson extra podcast over at our Patreon, patreon.com/Jawiin. More Geek History Lesson, more than you could. It's like a tundra of snow of more Killer Frost information is going to be over there. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Geek History Lesson. And leaving a rating or a review really lets other listeners know the quality of this podcast if you really like it, and it lets other people find the podcast in the search. And if you want to suggest a future topic like Killer Frost or even Cisco or even Firestorm like we talked about, you can do that where on our social medias, Ashley?
Well, you can do that at facebook.com/Geek History Lesson or geekhistorylesson.com.
Just hit the big ol' ass button. Ask button, not the ass button.
Ask
the
button.
ask. The K is important, just like the K in Killer Frost. And if you want to get after me for saying ass on a podcast, you can come to Twitter and yell at me in letters at Jawiin, Jawiin. That spelling should be very familiar to you by now. And you can find Ashley at Ashley V. Robinson. Go follow her and say, like, good lesson or bad lesson, or I'm going to throw icicles in your eyes. Oh. Yeah, that's right. That's it for this podcast. I'm Jason Popsicle Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, will you please close out the thermometric chamber that could possibly turn all of our students into icicle monsters?
Class is dismissed. Get out of the Arctic.
I know, that's good advice.